Hello, and welcome to the program. I'm Gigi Kopelak. I'm very excited about my guest today, Enrico Giordano. He is a professor and head of the Fine Arts Department at Mount St. Vincent, the College of Mount St. Vincent. Welcome, Enrico.
Thank you, Gigi.
I'm so glad you're here.
My pleasure.
So I went to see a show that was at the college of your work, your very interesting work, and surprisingly, it was in the science department.
Indeed.
Yeah, what was that about?
This being the bicentennial of Charles Darwin, the biology department at the college sent out an email to all departments asking what they might do to participate in the programming of that event. And I sort of responded to it very quickly because I felt that there was some relationship between Charles Darwin's theories and my work. And so I decided to get involved. Now, the interesting thing, though, is that when I went over to the science building, and I decided to have my work in the science building and not in the gallery at the college because I wanted it to be part of that space, being so connected to Charles Darwin. Interesting thing is that when I got there, on the way over there, I had 3 pieces in mind that I had already done that I thought might fit nicely into the show. But when I got there, I decided that that wouldn't work because the space itself would overwhelm the work I was considering.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you changed your whole thought in the beginning?
Yes. I thought I would do a few more pieces, but as it turned out, I did about close to 100.
So you were inspired.
In a short period of time, very much so.
Inspired.
Yeah, once I got into it.
Right, and the room is very large, and
Tremendous.
you've done some site-specific work,
Yes.
especially the around the doors. Let's look at an image around the door. I don't want to call them photographs because they're. You want to call them what would you say, mixed media or montages or?
I'm not sure what to call them, frankly.
Okay.
I think they're photographic in terms of material. They're done vis-a-vis a computer images, but I kind of tried to use the computer and the printer itself not so much as in a traditional way, but in a non-traditional way by not using Photoshop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so by
the only one in the world.
Well, I tried to. Each image took a long time to make.
Yeah.
Tremendous amount of work.
Labor of love.
Labor of love.
Labor of love. Yeah, let's look at mother and child, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, those are amazing. You have images of animals, but then you could see sort of transparently images of people and a child and
well mother the concept of mother and child is a traditional genre for art throughout its history, as you know, and so I thought it would be an interesting play on that, as well as linking it to Darwinian evolution. So I played with that concept, and for example, there's a series of images that go across the wall adjacent to the door, and in that series there is a clear and direct reference to Darwinian evolution, since I have images of a monkey, a female, a mother monkey or chimpanzee with its baby that slowly evolves into a human version of that.
Right.
And
that is the Mother and Child series.
That is the Mother and Child series itself.
Yes, right. So these images are about 8 by 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they surround the door.
They surround the door, and then they go across the wall on both sides of the door, down the hall.
Right. And then on top of that, you have some work. For instance, oh, wait. Before I go to that, I want to talk about the bear, which is another one that's around the door.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a different series?
That's a different series, okay. The bear image is an interesting one for me because superimposed on that, if one examines it closely, one will see an image of a native cultural shaman who, as you know, these people are very much interested in a symbiotic relationship with the natural world, the animal world itself. So I kind of superimpose that image on it, showing that yes, there's been an evolution, but in some cases, in some very important cases, that evolutionary experience has been modified in some sense.
Mm-hmm. I think it's fascinating. Your mind must have just been going and going and
It was
going
great.
to come up, because each, I would say maybe 5 or 6 images are one series, and then it changes to another series, and then another series. And
yeah, there must be at least 10 series there.
So exciting, very exciting. Yeah. And then above it, again, when we go back to that, you have, for instance, you call it the reclining nude, but I don't think that does it justice.
Actually, it's to the side of that.
Right.
Because it's a huge
right,
piece.
but it's above these.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. It's above. It's above that series. Yes,
right,
and adjacent to that door. Exactly.
On the wall.
Yeah, that's a fascinating piece for me.
It is.
It's very. I think it was a cathartic piece for me in many ways, because it attempts to relate very personal experience of mine with the objectivity of the Darwinian theory.
Okay.
So,
well, because we were all from the evolution, and
yes.
we're all evolving.
Yeah.
Is that it? But it's interesting what you're using. You're not using canvas.
Exactly. Well, it's mixed media. The image, the surface image is canvas. It's cut out canvas, but it's treated in such a way as to transform the canvas, at least I hope, into a skin-like quality.
Okay.
Now, behind it, though, I use very non-traditional material, and I've been working with this now for a little while. I use MRI film, and these are MRI images of my brain.
Okay.
And for me, it was an attempt to turn something negative into something positive, because I have multiple sclerosis, and consequently I'm at the radiology department very often getting these MRIs done. So one day it occurred to me to look at some of these, and I had a whole stack of them, and I had some discs, you know. Just said to myself, I must be able to do something with all this stuff.
No, so that's pretty amazing. So you've made it into an art, which the texture is amazing on the MRIs.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know.
Thank you. I love the reflective quality.
The reflective quality.
Yeah.
And you really have to look twice what's going on. So you have this sort of detail in each little grid.
Yeah.
And then the image of you.
Yeah.
I guess that's you.
Yes.
Would you say that's you?
Yeah, well, the reclining figure,
Yeah.
yes, it's a self-portrait as much of my work is. That's an interesting image in terms of the concept of the show, because it's sort of a primitive outline of a human form, and then inside of it you have an animal-like image as well.
Oh, okay.
So it's the reverse of that bear piece, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did that come out of the Darwin thinking, or was this a piece
Yes.
that you... It did. Okay.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So Darwin has really influenced.
Well,
you.
it was a great. I think it was a great theme for me.
It was.
Seemed very natural.
Well, I think most of you, from what I've read about you before, your work is about you and your past. It's been that way all along. So
autobiographical.
Autobiographical. So you're not really deviating from that. You're just
not very
sort
much.
of,
No.
Yeah. So let's look at the sacrifice for survival. And so that's now that's another medium. So you are multi-talented, working in many different mediums here. And this is this a print, or is this?
Sacrifice for survival. Well, they're photographs and montage. Okay.
And montage being like a collage.
Like a collage, only it's more, it's less integrated into the actual image and has a more pronounced view.
Yeah, so montage would have like a piece of sculpture on top of it. Or
yeah,
like
I think.
Collage is more two-dimensional.
Yeah,
right,
I think so.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is an interesting piece because in a way it started all of this.
Oh, really?
And it kind of shows the consistency of it all and how this and why this was such a natural fit for me. Many years ago, my wife and I were taking a stroll on Bethany Beach in Maryland, around May 31st, which happened to be a full moon, and around that time of year happened to be the migrating period for the horseshoe crab.
Oh.
Of course, we didn't know that at the time. It was just a beautiful night to take a romantic stroll on the beach. And as we were walking, I saw a horseshoe crab come up onto the beach, and I said, "Oh, look, there's a horseshoe crab." And so we just continued walking, thinking much of it. And as we continued, we saw a couple of more come up. And before you knew it, as we walked, there were hundreds. Literally hundreds, like an invasion of horseshoe crabs, which was appropriate because they're sort of futuristic looking anyway. But
prehistoric. You think they're futuristic?
I think they're both. I think that's what's nice about them. They're actually, what's great about horseshoe crabs is that they're living fossils.
Yeah.
They're living. They're just frozen in an evolutionary time warp. So
and they're endangered right now, aren't they?
I don't know. I didn't hear that.
I think they're getting
frankly
scooped up with something. I remember reading about this recently. And
I don't know. In any case, they kept coming up on shore, and then which kind of was startling and interesting. So the next morning, early in the morning, we heard all this commotion in terms of bird life on the beach, and we looked out the window, and what I saw was predatory birds coming down in great numbers, attacking these horseshoe crabs because it was the mating season and they were laying their eggs.
Oh, the horseshoe crabs were laying
yes
eggs. Oh, okay.
Yes, so these birds were attacking them, and a few hours later we went out and there were all these horseshoe crab carcasses on the beach, which I then assembled into site-specific sculpture on the beach.
Wow.
Photographed it.
Wow.
Made a documentation of it through photographs, and then some of which I cut out and sort of rearranged and made sort of visual statements in their own right.
And so this is the sacrifice.
Sacrifice for so they're sacrificing themselves in order to survive, so they lay their eggs. Exactly.
Yeah. I wonder, it'd be interesting to find out the life of the horseshoe crab. Do they die afterwards anyway? You know, like the salmon lay their eggs and then I don't know. They're a mystery creature, aren't they?
They're survivors.
Yeah,
though.
they certainly are. They really are. And this next one, I love this one, the royal family. Those are three.
It's one of my favorite pieces.
Yeah.
Really, it really is, that series.
Yeah.
I think mostly because of the materials that were used. You know, I was using concrete pigment. You know, the pigment that they use to paint the yellow lines on the roads. I was using felt, tar, and wax.
Wow.
To do these, and I think what interests me most about that, and really what inspired me most about that, is that for years as a professor lecturing on this subject, the subject of the Paleolithic cave paintings in Lascaux, France, there's one image in particular that resonates with me very deeply, and it still has that effect on me. And I made a copy of it that I downloaded from the internet. It's called well, it has many names or several names,
but we've named it. Our generation has named it. We don't know what it was called.
Scholars or whatever have named it the sorcerer or the shaman.
But we're talking 50,000 BC.
Yeah, we're talking Paleolithic period, 25,000 BC for this particular image, and it's wonderful because it illustrates a kind of image that relates to a period in time that was pre-scientific, okay, and an attempt to explain the universe through images on the cave walls, and these images very powerful in many ways, such as this particular image, and not only are they pre-scientific, but what interests me about them, in this particular image as well, is that they tend to be non-judgmental. You know, no judgments are made in terms of whether it's good or bad. The only judgment is whether it works, and whether it works as they relate to
Right.
their survival. So it's really art for survival's sake.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting subject. What was art in those days? It
Yeah.
wasn't art.
It wasn't art.
It wasn't art.
No.
We call it art, but then it was part of their culture.
Yeah.
And what they did. Yeah.
So I try to, I wouldn't say identify with this or those images in the royal family. I kind of wished, frankly wish I could, but that's impossible. So I just try to peel off the layers of my education and my consciousness, things that would make me more judgmental about my own work.
Take away that. Take that
Exactly.
away. Take away and try to look at it purely.
Right. And each piece is worked on and worked on. So it was sort of a positive and negative experience, because I'd be doing things, and then I'd be getting rid of them as well,
Right.
and then coming back to it over and over again.
So so in your mind you didn't have a family in mind, it became the family after it was done?
Yes.
Would you say, yeah.
Yes.
So the images would just
Yeah, I mean, the
evolve?
title is sort of a play on that grouping, really.
Right,
you
right. It
know.
has nothing to do with your thought process.
No.
You didn't go ahead,
No.
I'm going to do a painting of
No.
the royal family.
No, not at all.
It
No.
was very subconscious, and
Yeah.
you just allowed it to happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an amazing way to work.
And I
Yeah.
didn't know. Frankly, I really didn't know where it was going to lead, and I
Yeah.
love working like that. It could be very frustrating. I envy people like you who have things more well planned out.
No, I wish I could say I do. I think painting, I think all of art controls us. Wouldn't you say that?
I hope so.
That we,
Yeah.
that it takes over as we're working on it?
I mean, we have ideas in our head,
Yes.
but as soon, at least in my case, as soon as I put something down on paper, it kind of takes on a life of its own.
Absolutely, yes. And but you never know when to stop.
Well, that's the
That's
thing.
hard.
Usually my wife tells me, don't touch it anymore. No, I'm only kidding.
Yeah, well, I always tell everybody that I know, don't listen to anybody. So I don't know, maybe Alex could come into my house too and tell me. All right, the next four pieces I think are interesting, but I think I'm a little confused because I was grouping them together because I felt that they were objects that you had. Well, I'm going to let you explain it, but I think mollusk fan is not an object, is it? That's an imprint.
Mollusk fan, is a print in terms of, I guess, in the true sense of the word, or at least adhering to the definition of the word. But it was a print made in sand, a sand print in that sense.
Okay.
What I did was. We were doing we were taking a little time off up in Maine, and we were just on a farm, and I found an old tractor seat, rusted and quite beautiful. And having done the horseshoe crabs, this image, the shape of the horseshoe crab sort of stayed with me as a Jungian type symbol. And it does to this day, actually. Anyway, the horseshoe crab, the tractor seat kind of fit into that shape. It had the arched back and then tapered in toward the middle. So I took the horseshoe crab and I filled it with mud and sand.
You mean you took the tractor seat?
No,
I know. You've got horseshoe crabs on the brain.
Yeah, I took the tractor seat and filled it with mud, silt and sand from the shoreline there, and then I put down some beautiful artist paper, and I turned it over. And
no color.
No color.
No pigment.
No color. No pigment,
Yeah.
because the color was there.
Okay.
And I just let it sit overnight or a couple of days, and then when it was done, and when it hardened in the sun, I took off
the paper. And this is what we're looking
yeah,
at, the paper.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the color is fabulous. Yeah.
Well, it's not my color, it's Mother Nature's
Yeah.
color.
No, I'm fascinated that you can...
But I am very much attracted to those subtle earth tones.
But to me, it's fascinating that you can think, you know, be walking along, see a piece, and be able to translate it into an art piece. You know, you're just living art. You're just, no, seriously, walking along, living art. And then, but the next three, the Carnage, the Opera Mask, and the Totemic Tantrum, can I link the three of them? Would you say they're connected because they are?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Can I start with
please.
Carnage?
Yeah, certainly.
Carnage,
which is a tough word.
Yes, it is a tough word. Carnage is really a visual metaphor of many things. Okay, because if you look at the top part of the piece, it's the jawbone of a carnivore. So, and if you look at the part that's inserted, it's a rusted out spade or hoe that one used to plant with. So these are two tools, in a sense, used that had some relationship with food. And so there's a dialogue there, a visual dialogue there already, but they can also be seen as weapons.
The hoe can be seen as a hoe, and the
exactly,
jawbone. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's also an evolution within that piece as well. There's your visual metaphor.
Right.
All right, going from hunter is the jawbone and the spear, if you will, to farming.
Right.
Back in the Neolithic period.
Right.
So the hoe then is more about farming, okay? And then the jawbone from an animal can also relate to the domestication of animals, which also takes place during that period.
Right.
So you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, interesting. And interesting that you chose to use the object in these, not make a print of them. Or is there a reason? Are you thinking of?
I basically loved the object, and you know, it's one of those, as you know, moments when you see things that just fit together visually. You know that this shape is going to fit into this shape, and it resonates, and you say there's something going on here, and then you figure out later what it is, and what it was is what I explained to you just now.
Right. Yeah, and you have this freedom about you don't have to stick with, well, let me make a print of it. This is it. This is the way I react to it, and this is the way I'm going to use it. Yeah, it's great. That's great. And the opera mask is.
The opera mask is just a visual, a bit of visual humor.
Right.
It's made of an old rusted out mop.
So when people are mopping their floors, maybe they're listening to opera.
That would be wonderful.
And the totemic tantrum is the.
Totemic tantrum. Totemic tantrum is made with an old, the top part is an old rusted out, you know that part that's used to hang clothes on a clothesline, that sort of pulley, the wheel, that piece, and the bottom part is made again from a gardening tool. It's rusted out, which is quite beautiful. I love that
so
object.
Would you call that a woman's picture then? And then she's having a tantrum because she wants to...
I didn't think of it that way, and I'm not going to go there.
I mean, you're talking about the past, she's got to do the farming, and she's got to do the clothes. And
well, if you say so.
We can anyway review it, right? I love the work in progress also, this black and white piece.
That's a tough one for me because I'm really not sure where it's coming from. I'm not sure. That's why it's a work in progress.
Okay.
Right now I must have at least 25 pieces
Of this type.
Of this series, yeah.
But are these 4 finished?
Again, it's evolutionary because it's gotten to the series that you're showing now has gotten to a point where it's begun to fade to black. I don't have a total one that's totally black up there, but in my studio I do, and I'm debating now. Okay, am I going to total blackness? Now what do I do?
Wow.
So again, and these images are very anthropomorphic, and so they fit into the show as well. You know, because they seem to be frozen in an evolutionary time warp because they show upright images. Upright figures, but also seem very animal-like.
They seem scary.
Yeah, that's disturbing, and so again, I don't know where that's coming from.
I wonder what's happening. But you will show it because these 4 are finished. It's just that the whole series.
Yeah. Oh, the whole series hasn't been completed as yet, as far as I know.
You know what? We're almost out of time. I want to show. I want you to pick what you think we should show. Like, should we skip the show and move on to some of your paintings, like the grid in the Duomo, or do you want to talk about awaiting the change? Or
let's talk a little bit about awaiting the change. That's a nice painting.
Yeah, that's a beautiful. It's a great painting.
Yeah. Awaiting the change. That's an older piece.
Okay.
So again,
is this one of the 3 that you were originally thinking about putting in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's approximately 5.5 feet high.
Okay.
By 4 feet wide.
Right. Yeah, it's in the show on an easel.
On an easel, which is different in that sense in terms of the installation. But I think the colors are beautiful myself. I have sort of veered away from that in recent.
We know you're going into black and white.
Yeah, but it depicts a bottom feeding fish, such as a flounder. You'll see the 2 eyes up on the top part of it, and it also shows the figure of a human figure superimposed inside the body of the flounder, which is somewhat embryonic, but also looks adult at the same time. And then on both sides, I simply put my hands into some, I forget the color, but it's a blue turquoise-like color. And I put my hands in it, a bit of my wrist and arm, and this is oil paint and wax, by the way. And starting from the top, I just scraped them on both sides, coming down the entire image until I reached the end. Right. So there are sort of 3 things. It's all evolutionary oriented in itself, and this is interesting. I painted this a long time ago.
Yeah, and you know, to me it also has the same kind of shape about that shaman that you're talking about from the caves, the Neolithic caves, and yet it looks like an embryo.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because if you remember the bear piece that we showed earlier.
Yeah.
Then
it could be a bear. That's right.
That bear was the shaman superimposed inside of it.
Right.
So. Interesting.
Yeah.
How the subconscious works.
And it's really you.
Yeah.
It really gets to you. But I would really like to show.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like this. Well, let's see which we pick.
How about
affirmation? Yeah, that's a great painting.
Okay, let's show affirmation.
Let's do affirmation. That's great. That's huge.
Yeah.
How big is that?
Yeah, that's 6 feet by 4 feet.
Okay.
6.5. No, it's not huge. It's large. It's a little over 6 feet, 6.5 feet.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, it's pretty big. You have to have a big wall.
Yeah. And what were you thinking about?
Well, affirmation, it's a statement about having arrived in an evolutionary sense. So that central figure is emerging from the river and coming up, you know, and doing this with the
I think you're talking about
arms.
Mythic River.
No.
Affirmation?
Yes.
Oh,
affirmation.
okay. Oh, I'm sorry. They are related.
It's in my head. I spent a lot of time on that piece. Affirmation, yeah. And having arrived, yet still very fragmented.
Okay.
You know, so not quite there yet.
Is that a commentary on artists?
Artists and human race.
And yeah, we're here, but we're always thinking, always changing, always.
Yeah, no, we haven't. I mean, has evolution stopped?
No,
Have we reached the final
no,
stage?
but I guess I'm thinking more personally. Are we looking for affirmation?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was in that pain. It was. I thought I had arrived. There was a point in my life where I was feeling great and about myself, about my work. And I took a deep breath. I'm going to do this piece. And you know, if you look very closely at the bottom part of the painting, just above the clay fragments that clay chips that run across the bottom of it, and just above that, there's a series of images that relate to caves that may look like caves in and of themselves.
And there we are, back to that cave. This has been so exciting. It went too fast.
Yeah.
There's so many more things I would like to talk to you about. I know. It's unbelievable. Past. We went past. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. My pleasure, Gigi.
I just love your work.
Great.
I wish you all the best. Lots of affirmation.
Thank you, Gigi. Thank you very much. My pleasure.
And thank you for watching.